Forgiveness is a critical piece of healing from trauma. Being able to forgive the person that caused the trauma, at least on some level, so that you're able to release that anxiety, that the guilt that you may have associated with it, any kind of anger, frustration. But it doesn't make it easy. In fact, forgiveness is often very difficult, and you may have to forgive that person multiple times or on multiple levels, but it can be done. Do you want to achieve your goals, but anxiety is tripping you up? Like to keep those fun weekend plans, but depression has you counseling again? Hey, I'm Lori, dog mom, lover of nature, and hygge enthusiast. Positive psychology skills help me overcome chronic severe PTSD. If you're ready to learn how to overcome your anxiety and depression and rediscover happiness and purpose in life, then get your cozy on and let's get started. Forgiveness is a necessary, although sometimes very difficult, part of healing from trauma. Last episode, we talked about what forgiveness was not. It's not condoning bad behavior. It's not making excuses for the offense. It's not about deserving it. We also talked about why we forgive. There's both spiritual reasons, for those of us that are followers of Christ. There's also very practical reasons for physical, emotional, mental health. We talked about different kinds of forgiveness. So where you're forgiving someone who has not asked for forgiveness and how you're releasing the right to carry out justice, turning it over to God. And then there's the part where you're wiping the slate clean. And that's where we're going to pick it up today, where we take this a little step further and talk about the fact that forgiveness can take time. We're going to give you some practical steps on how to forgive and what to do when you are the one who needs to be forgiven. But forgiveness can take time. It doesn't necessarily happen overnight, especially for deep wounds. Sometimes you have to forgive that person over and over and over and over and over and over. Sometimes it's like I forgive them at this point for the things that I know about. I'm not holding a grudge against them, but then it has things come up and you relive that moment and you have to forgive them again. Or you realize a deeper hurt that they caused and you forgive them again. And God can help you. And I know there was one person in particular that was carries a lot of responsibility for my PTSD. And it took me years and help from psychologists and from medical professionals to help me with this until I got to the place that I could look that person in the eye and not wish them, I don't wish them any harm. I wish them all the best. I truly do. I have no ill feelings against them. I don't wish them ill. I wish them all the best in life. I have drawn boundaries. That person is not a part of my life. I don't interact with that person. I'm very careful if I do. It's just some common sense. But I wish them no ill will. And I don't carry that God has helped me to heal from that so much where the pain is not there anymore. And I've let that go. But it takes time. It took me a long time to process that, to process those emotions, and to get to the place where I could just let it go. Now, I never even wanted to seek revenge against that person. And God helped me on a regular basis when it would come up, when I would interact with that person, they would hurt me again. I would forgive them, release the desire or release the right for revenge and justice back into God's hands and let Him handle it and let it go. But God can bring healing, but it does take time. You may have to forgive them multiple times. You may have to go through this in multiple levels, but it can happen. God can bring healing and bring reconciliation if there's reconciliation possible. So how do you go about forgiving someone? One is to consciously recognize the value of forgiveness and how it can improve your life. So even if you're struggling with forgiveness, you just sit down and say, look, what do I want for myself? Let's just forget all the other stuff. What do I want for myself? For followers of Christ, you want to be forgiven by God. You want to get your prayers through. So this is a benefit for yourself, for all of us. You want healthier relationships. You want to improve your mental health. You want to be stronger and more fit. You want to be physically better. You want to have personal growth and development. You don't want to be stuck in this negative spot where you are with the burden of hatred or anger or vengeance or whatever is going on. You don't want to be stuck there the rest of your life. You want to grow and be better. So just sitting down and saying, look, these are the benefits of forgiveness, and this is what I want in my life. So, and then you need to identify what needs healing and who you want to forgive. Again, when you're forgiving someone, you are not excusing bad behavior. So, what did they do against me that is so hurtful? They betrayed me here. They lied against me here. They did this. They did that. Whatever it may be, acknowledge what they did. Put a name to it. List it out. This is what this person did against me. For those of you that know Christ, talk to him about it. Lay it all out before him and let him know exactly what's going on. But identify what needs to be healed and who you need to forgive. You may need to join a support group or get a counselor. And for those of you that go to church or have a pastor, you can sit down with a pastor, connect with a counselor. And I mentioned earlier some counseling that has helped me to be able to process the PTSD. I've also had medical professionals that have helped me on a physical level for processing some of the trauma that has helped me release some of that hurt. So you may need to get someone to help you, especially when the hurt is deep, if it's been repetitive, it's been something that's very wounding. Don't try to do this on your own. Nowhere in Scripture does God say you have to forgive and you have no one to help you out but yourself, just me and you, and that's it. That's nowhere in Scripture does it say that. In fact, there's a part where it talks about reconciliation in the church, and it actually talks about bringing along people with you to help you through that process. Get help and support in forgiving, especially those deep wounds that are so hard to forgive. Talk to someone, get some counseling, and get some help in that process. Acknowledging your emotions about the harm that was done to you, this is so important. And this is one of those really weird things I learned in the process of healing from trauma is acknowledging the emotions. We try so hard to get our emotions to fit in what we think they should be, or what we think is an acceptable mold or model. We want it to fit just this certain thing. It's so much better if you just acknowledge it. And this person really hurt me. I feel very betrayed. I feel like my world just got turned upside down. This person stabbed me in the back, or this person just totally destroyed my life and turned it upside down by doing X, Y, and Z. And, they took someone away from me that I loved, or, whatever it may be. Acknowledge that. Acknowledge the pain. Acknowledge the harm that was done to you, and recognize how these emotions are affecting your behavior. So even the what we would quote negative emotions, acknowledge those as well. I feel very angry. I feel very betrayed. I'm struggling with bitterness. I don't understand. I'm very confused. I'm feeling lonely. I feel isolated. I feel guilt. Whatever that may be, acknowledging those emotions and realizing the kind of impact they're having on you is part of healing. As part of healing from trauma, as part of forgiving, is understanding what it is that you're forgiving, what it is you're letting go, and how those negative emotions are affecting you. And God does not expect you to try to shove those emotions into the place where you want him to be. He wants you to talk to him about it and be very open and vulnerable and honest with him. He will never betray that. He never, ever. God will always be there for you. And then choosing to forgive the person who offended you. And again, this could take time and can take work. And you may have to do this multiple times and on multiple different levels. But choosing to forgive that person. And I was reading something someone posted the other day on grief and how you relive that loss every time you remember them. And sometimes when you're reliving that moment, the grief of losing somebody or the traumatic event or whatever happens to trigger that, sometimes you have to forgive all over again because you're in that moment and you're just caught up in that moment and you have to forgive again. So, but you choose to do that. It's a choice. You can choose to forgive. You can choose to not forgive. It is a choice and you can make it. And if you're struggling with it, God can come alongside you and help you along as well as others within the community. So a big piece of forgiving is releasing the control and power that the offending person's situation have had in your life. Releasing control and power of executing vengeance, but also releasing control and the power of the offense that they did and letting it go. I can't tell you that there was ever a magical moment that this happened for me where it just boom, it was gone. It was something that took a time. Now, I can remember a moment when I realized that the person who was responsible for a large part for my PTSD, I remember when it hit me that I wasn't upset with her anymore, that I could look her square in the eye and not feel any anger, any frustration, or even any hurt, that I had completely let it go. I do remember that moment when that hit me, and it was incredible. But understanding the impact that that's had on you and then letting it go and forgiving that individual. A big, huge piece of that, especially for those of you that are followers of Christ, is to pray for them. In fact, in Matthew, on the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus actually tells us to pray for those who despitefully use us or are mean to us or cruel to us, who do harmful things to us. I've heard this many times and I've done it myself. There's one time that I can think of in particular that this was brought home and I saw it lived out in living color and saw what God would do. It was just the coolest thing. There was this moment at work. There was someone there that had really, really hurt me, and more than once, and had just wounded me and in some ways betrayed me. And I just was really upset with him. And I was really stressed. And I remember coming home from work, and it had been a few weeks, and I had been talking to the Lord about this, and I'd been very angry and upset and processing that pain. And then, you go to work, you see the person again, they do it again, and it's kind of like over and over again. And I was on my way home from work, and God stopped me mid-complaint. And he says, Lori, you need to pray for that person. Oh, that's right. You actually tell us in the Bible to pray for those who, mistreat us. And so I began to pray, and I can't say it was easy at first. It was really hard because I was still upset with this person. This person had hurt me, but I knew I needed to pray for that person. And so I began to pray and some of it was just words I knew I needed to say, and I started saying them. But as I did that, God began to help me to pray for that person, and he began to give me the words to say. And I could feel the change that God began to work in my heart. And to this day, if that person were to walk up to me, I would probably give her a big hug, because God took out any of the anger and frustration in my heart and transformed it and filled my heart with love for her because I prayed for her. And I genuinely meant it. I mean, at first it was like, okay, Lord, I know I need to do this. But I began to truly pray that God would bless her and help her and heal the hurt in her own life that was causing her to be hateful to others, and to help her with the stress that she was dealing with, that she wasn't handling well, and it was communicating to the rest of the team, or whatever it could have been. I began to pray for her, and God changed my perspective. And from that day to the day I left, she didn't bother me. I mean, she could go off the rails, and I'm just like, oh, she's having a bad day, poor thing. And I would pray for her. It took out the sting for what she was doing because God filled my heart with love for her when I prayed for her. So praying for the person that has done you wrong is a ginormous, ginormous step in forgiving the person who has done wrong against you. So we've talked a lot about the individual who is doing the forgiving, to whom the defense was done. When someone's offended you, how do you forgive someone else? Why do you do that, etc.? But what about if you are the one who needs forgiving? What then? Well, as a follower of Christ, who strongly believes in this, I can tell you the very first thing I recommend is going to God and asking for forgiveness. That's the first place you need to go, because that ultimately, bottom line, that's who you've offended the greatest, is God himself. So going to him and asking for forgiveness is the first step. And then it's going to the person to whom the wrong was done and asking them to forgive you. First, be honest about what you've done. Hey, this is what I did that was bad, and I'm truly sorry. I know it's done thus and thus to impact your life. And being very honest with that and accepting responsibility for that. Don't try to shove it off on somebody else or blame someone else or even try to justify or explain your actions. And yes, I know especially that latter part is very hard to avoid because there's almost always something else involved that's driving those actions. And a misunderstanding on your part, a wound, anger, hurt on your side, or misunderstandings, or whatever it may be. Ultimately, it doesn't matter what caused you to do it in that moment. The fact is, you did it, and you need to be forgiven for it. So the best way to do that is to say, look, I did X, Y, and Z. I know it was wrong. Can you please forgive me? Full stop. Period. Draw the line. That's it. That's all the conversation. At some later date, when you're working through reconciliation, you might be able to explain to them what was going on and why you did what you did, what was motivating you, the other circumstances behind it. But in that moment, when you are asking for forgiveness, it is, I did this, it hurt you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, done. That's it. Now, at this point, it's important to understand that the act of forgiveness is completely in the hands of the other person. You cannot control that. Once you have done your part to sincerely apologize and ask for their forgiveness, the power now rests in the hands of the person that you're requesting forgiveness from. They have the power to forgive or to not forgive. And again, just like it takes time for you to forgive, it may take time for them to forgive. So you may need to exercise patience with them as they work through that. Another really important part of the equation, and something that can be at least very difficult to do, is forgiving yourself. Sometimes we can be so harsh and critical against ourselves, or if we have justifiable reasons for feeling guilty because we know what we did was wrong and we really screwed up. It can be super difficult to forgive yourself, but it's also very, very important in letting go of that and moving on and growing beyond that to be able to forgive yourself. And this, depending on what it is and what's involved and how much you're struggling with this, I would recommend getting help, getting a counselor, getting a pastor involved, definitely praying and asking God to help you. But however you go about that, it is important that you forgive yourself so that you can move on and grow and develop and become the person that God wants you to be post the offense. So as we wrap up, there's a quick reminder of what forgiveness is: not excusing bad behavior or condoning it. It's not excusing the offense. It's not about what they deserve or don't deserve. We forgive because God has directed us to do that. There's clear psychological and physical benefits to forgiving and letting go of that toxic load of grudges and hatred and anger. How do we forgive? Or what levels of forgiveness? There's two levels. One where we give over to God the right to carry out the justice and let Him do that and do that well. There's also the point where we wipe the slate clean and potentially look at reconciliation and restoration. Forgiveness takes time. This is not an overnight solution. It can take time. You may need to forgive them multiple times on multiple levels. We talked about the 7 things or the 7 ways to forgive someone, and recognizing the value of forgiveness, identifying what needs healing and who you want to forgive, joining a support group, seeking counseling, getting help in the process from a pastor or friend, acknowledging your emotions and the harm that was done, choosing to forgive the person who offended you, releasing control and power of the offending person and situation, and then praying for that individual. Forgiveness is a beautiful and very important part of healing. I'm so thankful for the forgiveness that I have personally received. I'm thankful for the help that God has given me to forgive those who have offended me. I pray that these 2 episodes on forgiveness are a blessing to you, that it can give you some hope and some direction in your own life and forgiving the trauma that has been done against you. If you need any help, feel free to reach out. I would love to be able to talk to you, to pray for you, to support you in any way I can. And I pray God's blessing upon you. If you have questions, comments, or would like someone to help pray for you, please feel free to reach out. Our email address is support@practicalsolutionsforptsd.com. Hey, my friend, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, would you please take 30 seconds and share it with someone you know who may be struggling with depression and anxiety? Also, would you please leave a quick review for the show? Knowing how this podcast is helping you fills my heart with so much joy, and it motivates me for future episodes. For now, it's time for Sam and I to head outside to enjoy some sunshine and fresh air. We'll see you back here on Tuesdays and Thursdays for more great episodes.